set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom. And over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was the first, that the princes might give account unto them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes because he had an excellent spirit. And the king thought to set him over the whole realm. So I want to focus on today on the importance of excellence. Many times in life, we allow ourselves to decline in terms of excellence in service. And I found an interesting example about excellence that I want to share with you. So the question today is, are you Ezra or Thomas? So these 2 college roommates, Ezra and Thomas, joined a company together after graduation. After a few years of work, Ezra was promoted to the position of senior sales manager, but Thomas remained in his entry-level position. Because of this, Thomas developed a sense of jealousy and disgruntlement, but he continued working. One day, Thomas felt that he couldn't take it anymore working with Ezra, and he wrote his resignation letter. But before he submitted it to the manager, he complained to management about how they didn't value hard work and how they promoted people based upon favor as opposed to their work. The manager knew that Ezra worked very hard for the years he had spent in the company, even harder than Thomas, and therefore he deserved the promotion. So in order to help Thomas realize this, the manager gave him a task. The manager said, go out and find if anyone is selling watermelons in town. So Thomas returned and said, yes, there is someone. The manager said, how much per kilogram? So Thomas drove back into town and asked and found out and said, they are $13.50 per kilogram. So the manager told Thomas, I will give Ezra the same task that I gave you. Please pay close attention to his response. So the manager said to Ezra, in the presence of Thomas, go in town and find out who is selling watermelons. So Ezra went out, and upon his return, he said, manager, there was only one person selling watermelons in the whole town. The cost is $49 for each watermelon, $32.50 for half melon. He sells them at $13.50 per kilogram in slice. He has in his stock 93 melons, each one weighing 7 kilograms. He has a farm and can supply us with melons for the next 4 months at a rate of 102 melons per day at $27 per melon, which includes delivery. The melons appear fresh and red with good quality. They taste better than the ones we saw last year. He has his own slicing machine and is willing to slice for us free of charge. We need to strike a deal with him by 10 a.m. tomorrow, and we will be sure of beating last year's profits by some $223,000. This will contribute positively to our overall performance, as it will add 3.78% to our current level sales targets. I have this information down in writing and is available on a spreadsheet, and I can also email it to you. Please let me know if you need it, as I can send it to you in about 15 minutes. After this exercise, Thomas realized the difference between he and Ezra. So my question to you today is, are you Thomas or Ezra? It's very important for us to be excellent, because excellence is what God is. The Bible says in the book of Psalms, it says, how excellent is your name. And so if we are representing him, we need to be excellent also. Amen? Amen. Let's bow our heads together. Father God, we just thank you once again for this opportunity to gather to conduct business on behalf of the people of the Bahamas. We ask for your wisdom, your guidance, Father, may everything that we do and say be done decently and in order. And we thank you for a positive outcome. In Jesus' name, amen. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses. And we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation. Deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Dr. Hubert Minnis, Peter Turnquist, Ren Simonet, Desmond Bannister, Renwood Wells, Jeffrey Lloyd, Dr. Dwayne Sand, Marvin Dame, Frankie Campbell, Nikhil Diagla, Michael Pintard, Darren Henfield, Ramal Ferreira, Nisha Roll, Renzo Roll, Ellsworth Johnson, Philip Davis, Vaughn Miller, Letitia Parker Edstrom, Hiram Lewis, Carlton Bolai, James Aldridge, Travis Robinson, Adrian Gibson, Donald Saunders, Frederick McAlpine, Hank Johnson, Mark Hume, Michael Folk, Miriam Breffley Emmanuel, Reese Chipman, Ruben Rami, Ricky Mackey, Shannon Don Cartwright, Chanel Ferguson, Lennis Hannah Martin, Faisal Falk, Chester Cooper.
Good morning, honorable members. Honorable members, I am in possession of a communication dated the 2nd of April from the honorable member for the Centerville constituency. It's addressed to the clerk of the parliament, and it is captioned Commonwealth of the Bahamas Parliamentary Service Bill 2021. This is a notice to Parliament to lay on the table a bill for an act to establish parliamentary service of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to provide its Parliamentary Service Commission, its membership, functions, operation, and financial management of the parliamentary institution, and to provide for the transfer of staff and the continuation of their service under the parliamentary service and for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, whose objectives are as follows. A, to establish the independence of the legislature by placing the responsibility of the parliament under the control and management of the autonomous body independent of the executive. B, to confer on such body the power to provide parliament with the necessary administrative and financial facilities and services necessary for Parliament to perform its constitutional mandate. C, to enable the legislature to generate revenue, receive grants, and manage its own financial and administrative affairs while promoting good governance, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in a parliamentary democracy established since the 29th of September, 1729. And D, to promote accountability and transparency through education, technology, and citizen participation in the democratic process. And that is signed by the Honorable Member Reese Chipman, member for Centerville, the constituency of Centerville. Ordered that the notice to lie on the table. Also, honorable members, this morning, the Constituencies Commission was scheduled to meet. Notwithstanding the notices given, the meeting did not occur, and the only members present were the member for the Exumas in Ragged Island and the member for Nassau Village, the chairman of the commission, the Speaker of the House. I received a notice from Madam Justice that she was unable to attend, and I was advised that the honorable member for Bamboo Town is engaged in an international meeting this morning, and the clerk advised me that the honorable member for Marco City also made contact with him with respect to his not being able to attend. Now, in the circumstances, the Commission has been experiencing challenges receiving up-to-date data from the Parliamentary Registration Department. In the absence of the member for Mount Moriah, as chairman of the Commission, I'm making a public appeal to the honorable member for Kalani to request that the Commission be provided with the updated statistics from the Parliamentary Registration Department by Friday of this week. It is in the intention of the chairman of the Commission to conclude its sitting on the 19th of April, which is Monday following. It is impossible and impractical to give a reasonable report and recommendation without the empirical data. The last time the Commission received data was on the 22nd of February 2021. And on the 2nd of March, the Commission's meeting was attended by representatives from the Parliamentary Registration Department. And at that time, there was a pledge that the Commission would receive weekly updates. But from the 1st of March until today's date, despite numerous inquiries made by Mr. Flowers, who assists the Clerk of the Parliament, as well as myself, the Commission has not been provided with any updates. An analysis of the data that was provided on the 1st of March, on the 22nd of February rather, indicates that in New Providence there are 2 constituencies that have more than 6,000 voters, that are approaching 7,000 voters. Those are the constituencies Golden Isles and Kalani. There are 13 constituencies between 5,000 and 6,000 voters, 8 constituencies in New Providence between 4,000 and 4,900 voters, and 1 constituency, St. Barnabas, with a number of votes between 3,000 and 3,900. Now, if we examine New Providence, the number of voters in New Providence, based on the statistics provided of 123,783, we would arrive at an average of 5,158 voters. And it is the constitutional duty of the Commission to try to bring about parity among voters. It is therefore estimated that each constituency should range between 5,100 voters plus 500 or less 500. And that will be a reasonable parity. In other words, 4,600 or so to 5,500 or 600, which should be a reasonable range. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we must increase the numbers of seats. We can adjust the boundaries to bring about such parity, or we can increase the numbers of seats to bring about such parity. Likewise, we have the similar conditions in Grand Bahama, where when we average out the number of voters in Grand Bahama of 29,515, the average is approximately 5,900 for Grand Bahama. So as a consequence, we need the empirical data by Friday of this week so that we can conclude our hearing and report. We want to conclude our hearing on the 19th of April and report to this Parliament. Any failure to provide the statistics that is being requested by the Commission will result in the Commission not rendering a report to this Parliament, which is a constitutional function, which, in my estimation, is being frustrated. Accordingly, I table statistics for New Providence and the Family Islands with respect to the averages and the total number of voters in each constituency. Order that the document do lie on the table. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following. Emergency Powers COVID-19 Pandemic Risk Management Number 4, Amendment Number 10, Order 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
Thank you, Speaker. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following. The Public Debt Management Act 2021, Appointment Day Notice 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
Thank you, Speaker. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following. The Public Procurement Act 2021, Appointment Day Notice 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following. The Public Finance Management Act 2021, Appointment Day notice 2021.
Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: Statistics Act 2021, Appointment Day Notice 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following document: the Price Control General Amendment Number 3, Regulation 2021, on behalf of Minister Wells.
Order that the document be brought up.
Yes.
Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shores.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. On behalf of Minister Romuald Ferreira, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Biological Resources and Traditional Knowledge Act 2021, Appointed Day Notice 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamakro.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: A, the Industries Encouragement Approved Product, Bethel Manufacturing Enterprise Limited, Order 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamakro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Industries Encouragement Approved Manufacturing, Bethel Manufacturing Enterprise Limited, Order 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamakro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Industries Encouragement Approved Product, Lutra Sales, Order 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamakro.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Industries Encouragement Approved Manufacturing Lutra Sales, Order 2021.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
No further documents, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member. Statements and communications by ministers. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Carmichael.
Speaker, I listened very carefully to Pastor Dave this morning. And you know, my name is Thomas. So I have to continue to strive to do a little better. This is a communication on operations conducted in the Abaco Shantytown on Thursday, the 8th of April, 2021. Speaker, over the past few decades, thousands of people have deliberately occupied lands in this country that they do not own. In the process, they've created shantytowns throughout the country in breach of the laws. Many of them have open holes for toilets, unlawful or no connection to the electrical grid, pirated or no connections to water. The residents are not inspected and do not meet building codes. Conditions are unsanitary, non-compliant, and unlawful businesses flourish, and stolen goods proliferate. Several such communities have existed on the island of Abaco. Hurricane Dorian exposed some of the dangers of those unregulated communities, but it wiped 3 of them out: the mud, the pea, and sandbite. So, Speaker, I vividly recall the horror that residents of those communities reported. I recall the devastation. And I will never, sir, I will never forget the stench of decaying bodies. To this date, sir, we still do not know exactly how many persons died in those shantytowns. It's important to mention, sir, that in 2018, the Supreme Court issued orders that impacted both the government and shantytown squatters. In March 2018, the court issued an order which read in part, and I'm going to quote it: restraining the respondents from taking possession of, demolishing and building, or otherwise interfering with the 177 applicants and other residents and occupiers enjoyment of land in shantytowns in New Providence, including by disconnecting any utilities other than pursuant to the relevant enabling legislation, pending determination of this action. End quote. Then, Mr. Speaker, on 17 December 2018, the Supreme Court issued another order that varied the previous injunction. And the new order states, and I quote, further, pending the determination of this action or until such further order, the 177 applicants and other residents and occupiers of the land in shantytowns, New Providence, or elsewhere in the Bahamas, and I emphasize that, or elsewhere in the Bahamas, shall take no action to construct, erect, or alter any further buildings or structures, otherwise than in accordance with the Buildings Regulations Act. Hence, Mr. Speaker, the position prior to Hurricane Dorian was that the courts first prohibited the government from demolishing existing shantytown structures and the structures that had already been constructed. And at the same time, the courts prohibited anyone from constructing, from erecting, or from altering any unregulated shantytown buildings anywhere in the Bahamas. Speaker, the government of this country obeyed the court order, as we are obliged to do. However, many of these persons continue to unlawfully construct new buildings in shantytowns all over the country and to enlarge existing buildings. Speaker, Hurricane Dorian hit us in September 2019, and the government responded to the devastation that was caused by completely clearing away all of the ruined buildings on the mud, the peat, and sandbanks. The government also fenced those areas in at considerable cost to the Bahamian taxpayer. However, many of the residents of those communities sought out other locations on that island and constructed even more unregulated buildings. Mr. Speaker, those activities were in breach of the court order. One of the shantytown locations in Abaco is a tract of land that is known as the farm. Shortly after the passing of Hurricane Dorian, the government caused drone footage to be taken of the farm community. The footage revealed that 30 of the shacks had survived Hurricane Dorian. It is clear that the injunction prevented the government from demolishing those 30 buildings. However, in defiance of the court order that prohibited them from constructing more buildings, persons continued to build more and more unregulated and unsafe structures. It was clear that these structures that were altered or erected after August 2018 without valid building permits blatantly disrespected and breached the court order, and also contravened the provisions of the Building Regulations Act and the Planning and Subdivisions Act. Speaker, I must emphasize that that legislation that I've mentioned was put in place to protect all of us. The horrible devastation in the mud from Hurricane Dorian clearly shows how persons can be injured and killed when structures are not built in accordance with the law. Additionally, sir, inspections and drone footage revealed the unsanitary and unhealthy practices that prevailed, which endanger our health through the pollution of the water table with human feces and other items. In the case of the farm, this poses a real challenge in that the unregulated structures threaten to spread all the way to Treasure Keep and to impact their groundwater. Studies in other islands showed a similar results. Yet another challenge, Mr. Speaker, has been the proliferation of commercial-sized generators and the sale of electricity, with persons stealing electric wires from BPL and stringing them out haphazardly throughout the unregulated areas to provide electricity to the shanty houses. This means, first, that we are inconvenienced by disruption of our service when wiring is stolen, and as taxpayers, we have to pay for the losses that DPL incurs in having to constantly replace stolen electrical wiring. Moreover, the wiring in these houses are unsafe and in breach of the Electricity Act, as are the generators themselves. Mr. Speaker, one need only recall the devastating fire in the mud 2 years ago to appreciate the danger that this practice poses to human life. Mr. Speaker, I might add that this electrical wiring process is not done out of human kindness. Rather, it is done so that persons profit from the misery of their fellow human beings who are charged a weekly fee for the service. Speaker, unfortunately, many of these breaches in law are facilitated by Bahamians, who also are benefited financially by unlawfully providing services to unregulated communities. One such example at the farm was the nightly provision of heavy equipment to construct roads, thereby enabling the construction of even more unregulated structures. Speaker, one other challenge has been the unregulated proliferation of services, such as unregulated, unlicensed shops, the sale of stolen goods in unregulated and illegally constructed communities. In response to these challenges, sir, the Cabinet authorized the Minister of Public Works to review the challenges that are associated with the farm and to coordinate such actions as may be required to ensure that the unlawful practices are stopped. As a result, Mr. Speaker, a number of government agencies, inclusive of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the Immigration Department, Bahamas Customs, Bahamas Power and Light, and a number of private sector partners work closely together to examine the challenges and to propose solutions. The result is a multi-phase coordinated plan, the first phase of which was executed on Thursday, the 8th of March. Mr. Speaker, the only person who can lawfully create public roads is the Minister of Public Works. No such determination has been made by the Minister in relation to the multiplicity of access roads that were being constantly created every night to provide access to the farm. Accordingly, beginning at 4:30 a.m. on Thursday morning, all of the illegally created access roads, except one, were blocked with large boulders. I caution to advise that the remaining road is not a public road, but will be left open for now in order to provide access to residents and authorities. Secondly, sir, large signs were posted prominently throughout the area. The signs are in English and in Creole. They provide a warning, first, that structures are erected contrary to the provision of the Building Regulations Act and the Building Code, and those structures will be demolished. The signs also warn that persons who erect structures contrary to the provision of the Planning and Subdivision Act will be subject to prosecution and the buildings will be demolished. Finally, sir, the signs warn that the Supreme Court has ordered that no action is taken to construct, erect, or alter new structures. Mr. Speaker, in this communication, I've also attached a copy of a photograph showing where the roads are blocked and showing the signs that have been erected, some of the signs. And so when you get the communication, you're going to see what we've done. And these are very, very large. These are culverts from the bridge that did not survive Hurricane Dorian. So these are very large culverts. We do not anticipate that anybody is going to be able to remove them. But of course, if someone wants to, they can simply push around the road and continue to create illegal roads. But we're going to do something about that. Speaker, the third action that was taken is that notices were affixed to all of the structures that were erected subsequent to the passage of Hurricane Dorian. There are two types of notices. First, for incomplete and unoccupied structures, the notices advise that they will be demolished after 14 days in accordance with the provision of the Planning and Subdivisions Act. For occupied structures, sir, the notices advise that they will be demolished after the passage of 28 days in accordance with the Buildings Regulations Act. The fourth action that was taken, Mr. Speaker, is that with the assistance of BPL and a private electrical contractor, 9 commercial generators were confiscated. Mr. Speaker, these are not ordinary generators. These are commercial generators. These are large generators. Several were being operated for commercial purposes in contravention of the Electricity Act, and with a capacity to provide electrical power to close to 200 structures. The police also confiscated a number of generators that were believed to have been stolen. And Mr. Speaker, I have photographs of these generators. You can see that these are really large-scale commercial generators. We have photographs in this communication, Mr. Speaker, of the kinds of electrical connections we have. This is very, very dangerous, showing how people were provided with power for commercial purposes. We have more photographs, Mr. Speaker, showing how they control the power. Mr. Speaker, the fifth action that was taken is that a number of illegal bars and commercial operations were closed. And so you will hear people speaking about items that were taken. and suspected uncustomed goods were taken into the protective custody of customs and police officials. Mr. Speaker, I have a picture of a bar. You can see the bar here. You can see how it was set up as a commercial operation. So anyone in the media, they will get this electronically. Additionally, sir, a number of persons were arrested for possession of firearm, possession of dangerous drugs, possession of uncustoms goods, and for violation of the immigration laws of the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you, Senator, I'll tell you. It is important to note that law enforcement officers will remain in the area to prevent further breaches of the law. Additionally, sir, upon the expiry of 14 days from the posting of the notices, all of the unoccupied and uncompleted structures will be demolished. Further, sir, in the second phase of our planned operation, as I indicated, all incomplete and unoccupied structures will be demolished. And they will be done in accordance with the notices that were posted pursuant to the provisions of the Planning and Subdivisions Act. Additionally, sir, on the expiry of 20 days, the third phase of the operation will begin with the demolition of other structures in accordance with the provisions of the Building Regulations Act. Speaker, I conclude by making 3 points. First, we are a country of laws. We must all respect the law and act in accordance therewith, including our health, immigration laws, and the building code. Secondly, sir, I repeat that much of what has occurred has happened with the complicity of many Bahamians. Where those persons are identified, appropriate action will be taken. Finally, sir, I applaud the courage and professionalism of our government agencies, particularly immigration officers, customs officers, defense force officers, and police officers. In particular, I thank Commissioner of Police, Mr. Paul Roll, and the officer in charge of Abaco, Chief Superintendent Kenwood Taylor, for the thoroughness of their planning, the expertise that they provided, and the exceptional leadership that they displayed throughout the initial stage of this operation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the communication be brought up. Order that the communication do lie on the table.
Speaker, my communication is not supposed to be controversial. I seek not to make it controversial. I indicated in the communication that at Dorian, there were only 30 structures left on the farm. There's a proliferation of structures there now. Anything that I do for the Bahamian people while I'm here, I'm seeking to do it for the reason I indicated in that communication. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, just before I proceed, I'm in receipt of a communication from the Governor General. Not you, Honorable Member. This is to all. A notice from the Governor General for the signing of the Book of Condolences in memory of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. All members of Parliament and the Senate are invited to sign the Book of Condolences between the hours of 2:15 p.m. and 5 p.m. today at the Governor General, Office of the Governor General at Government House. Yeah, they don't have that one here. Oh, I'm being advised that the signing would be at Montague Place. Okay, that's not indicated on the notice that I've received. So members, it's at Montague. Okay, we'll make inquiries to that to see if that can be done to accommodate members. Okay, thank you, honorable members. Further statements and communications by ministers. Communications by the clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Well, I just gave that one. Messages from the Senate. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, seat, and new writs. Presentations of petition. Presentation of reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills. Second reading and communication of bills. Committee of the whole House. Third reading and passing of bills. Consideration of Senate amendments. Resolutions. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to commence the debate on the resolution to transfer 83 odd acres of property in the western district of New Providence from the treasurer to the Crown. Mr. Speaker, it is important for us as national leaders to have a governing philosophy that guides our vision and policies on behalf of the people who had sent us here. For the Free National Movement, what guides our vision is very clear. We want to empower Bahamians with opportunities so they can realize their potential and their dreams. And that is why my government made the historic investment to expand preschool education. We want young people to have the start necessary for a life of learning and a life of achievement. And that is why my government, Mr. Speaker, expanded free access to tertiary education at BTVI and the University of the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, when we came into office, we spoke about the Bahamian dream. That is, individuals wanting to receive proper education so that they can improve themselves and improve better job opportunities and advance further in life. We then defined that Bahamian dream, Mr. Speaker, that Bahamians pursued as education, housing, accommodation, land ownership, job, and finally, health care. And Mr. Speaker, when we came in, it's our objective to make those dreams a reality. In phase one of such Bahamian dream, as to speak in terms of education, we have provided free education to BTVI. We provided free education to UB, University of Bahamas, thus saving individuals anywhere in excess from $4,000 to $6,000 that would have been spent annually for a proper education. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that many students traveling from the Family Island would need accommodation to live here in New Providence and in a safe environment. And therefore, every student traveling from the Family Islands to New Providence to attend UB is given $500 per month to assist them with accommodation. Then, Mr. Speaker, we've made it a reality to provide free education for preschool. And we recognize that the government does not have sufficient preschool, and therefore those students, preschoolers 3 to 4 years old, who attend private preschool are given grants of $2,000 per year to ensure that Bahamians are educated properly. And Mr. Speaker, today, 1,500 of such grants has been issued, and we continue to plow along to ensure that preschoolers are educated. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, many preschools were not up to par, and 36 of such facilities were granted up to $25,000 monies used to upgrade their facilities and take advantage of the $2,000 per student. We also recognize, Speaker, that the Family Islands may be somewhat compromised and that we are not Nassau-centric, and there are Family Island preschoolers that likewise need education. And we've offered individuals who are qualified to establish a preschool facility, we've offered to grant them the land free of charge, and they would be able to access Small Business Development Center for grants as well as Development Bank, so as to ensure that our preschoolers in the Family Islands are likewise educated. And in addition to that, they too would take advantage of $2,000 per year for every student that utilizes it. Mr. Speaker, another component of the Bahamian dream that we are making reality is housing. And Mr. Speaker, housing is very important, and it would probably be one of the largest investments to the average Bahamian. And I can recall, Mr. Speaker, when we were building our own house in Kennedy subdivision, and that was my mother's biggest investment. Opportunities like we have today was not around yesterday. And having purchased our property within the Kennedy subdivision area, Mr. Speaker, it took us 15 years to complete our home. And that was because, Mr. Speaker, for every $15, $20 we got, we would purchase whatever amount of blocks and materials that could. And the communities were so well knitted that individuals who had knowledge of construction would assist in laying such blocks. And all we had to pay at that time, the average Bahamian with no terminology that I am about to use, all we had to pay was provide slam bunk to ensure that they were fed properly. And for those sophisticated individuals who do not know what slam bam is, it's sausage that you put between two bread, you slam it there, and you bam it together. Slam bam, sausage and bread. Now you know you wouldn't know. That's why I explained it. But so Mr. Speaker, utilizing whatever monies we had, it took us 15 years to complete our greatest investment at that time, which should have been our home in Kennedy subdivision. But today we're offering better opportunities than yesterday. And we are offering proper facilities. But Mr. Speaker, as I advance, I only want to mention that as I speak about the subdivision that we're about to embark upon, that subdivision would also have proper facilities for preschooling within that facility. But I would explain that as we progress. Then, Mr. Speaker, the other component of the Bahamian dream that we are making a reality is they would love to have a job. And we were struck, we were set back by 3 disasters. When we first came in, we had to manage Hurricane Irma, where we evacuated individuals from the southern Bahamas. Never in the history of the Bahamas, air evacuation, and brought them all to safety. Then we were set back by Dorian. And Dorian, everyone can speak on that at great liberty. Then the world pandemic. And jobs obviously would have been lost. Mr. Speaker, the Bahamian dream and the reality still exist. And one of my ministers, several of my ministers, as they get up and speak, they would speak about various components of the Bahamian dream. They would speak about the job component. Then, Mr. Speaker, the last component of the Bahamian dream is healthcare. Every individual would love education, they would love accommodation, they would love a job, and most of all, proper health care. And with time, as we progress, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Health would elaborate on the National Health Insurance Plan. He would elaborate on the expansion. We've completed one particular thing, the critical care block at the Princess Margaret Hospital. He would elaborate on the way forward, phase 2, and he would elaborate on the expansions of the clinic and facilities and the Rand Memorial Hospital. But I would not say much about that today, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we want Bahamians to be educated to find fulfilling careers so they can take care of themselves and their families. And that is why my government provided in funding, millions in funding to entrepreneurs via the Small Business Development Center, and why we will invest even more in small businesses. We want Bahamians, Mr. Speaker, to start new enterprises to help grow our economy, and most of all, to create wealth. Our desire to help provide opportunity to Bahamians is why we are here today, debating a resolution to provide land for the development of a parcel of land, invest in New Providence for a residential development for young Bahamian professionals. Access to land and land ownership helps to build and to secure intergenerational wealth, with one generation of a family able to build on what was achieved by previous generations. The land in question, Mr. Speaker, is an 83-acre parcel in the Prospect Ridge area near Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, So as all can see, John F. Kennedy Drive, roundabout, AF Paul Adley Complex, Oval New Building, Oval Turnquest Complex, and land is reserved for other expansion. On the eastern end of such land is Skyline, Prospect Ridge. Then on the northern end is Sanford Drive with the residence of the American Embassy, residence for judges. And on the eastern end of such property is Balmoral and land that was reserved for the home of the Prime Minister. And, Mr. Speaker, the area is well developed. And I want to assure individuals within the area that there's no possibility of such development decreasing the value of their land. In fact, the value of their land will continue to escalate. So, Mr. Speaker, this is the land that I speak about in question. Speaker, just to give a brief view of what type of development we plan on placing there, there'll be multi and single family units. The committee that's dealing with such development has proposed that the multi-family units should be no more than duplexes for obvious reasons. Those who are in banking would know that as you go beyond, you then move into a commercial entity. This is the roundabout that we showed earlier on John F. Kennedy Drive. And as you know, there'd be entrance from such roundabout, and there'd be entrance coming from Prospect Ridge, not from Sanford Drive area. But, Mr. Speaker, what is most significant here, we've done surveys of the land, and there are some areas of the land that are low-lying. And those areas, I'm sure the leader of opposition would know very well. Within, just at the junction of Prospect and Sanford Drive, the land there is at least about 3 foot above street level. There will be no filling, there will be no excavation. And that component, below. And there'd be no excavation, no filling, no compaction. We utilize the ecological environment, and it can be used as runoff to ensure no flooding. And all those areas that are low within the area would be utilized accordingly. What is most noticeable within the commercial sector, Mr. Speaker, is a preschool. There'll be facilities for a preschool for such development, and such property would be great opportunity for individuals with such knowledge to embark on a preschool and take advantage of what government is offering in terms of each student being, the facility being paid $2,000 per year for each student, in addition to taking advantage of all the concessions that I will speak about soon that are being offered there. Then, Mr. Speaker, in such facility, we are debating, and the committee is debating, whether within the commercial sector, you can put a barbershop, thus creating opportunity for individuals, beautician, creating opportunities again for such individuals. and other amenities, clubhouse, pool, etc. But Mr. Speaker, as time progressed, we would speak a lot more about this development. Mr. Speaker, the development will be upscale, incorporating walking paths, parks, a community center, a swimming pool, tennis court, and a clubhouse. It will be eco-friendly with minimal change to the existing topography of the land. And I spoke about that previously to ensure you that there will be no filling in of certain low-lying areas. We would maximize those areas and leave them in their existing environment. There will be approximately 250 lots, including for single-family residences, townhomes, and duplexes. The exact number of parcels will be determined following consultations with the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection and Town Planning on density restrictions. Those selected will be able to purchase lots of around the size of 70 to 95 by 100 feet, with a maximum sum of approximately $50,000. Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is the government will offer such lots. The government will offer such plots of land. The commercial would be at $50,000, and the single family will be at $40,000. And Mr. Speaker, you would note that the depth of the land extends to 100 feet as opposed to the usual compressed land that we see today. And that will allow individuals to engage in their own personal backyard farming so that they can have fresh vegetables, etc. And I am certain that in keeping with the Ministry of Agriculture's programs, where they are providing Bahamians with the necessary equipment for backyard farming, but in addition to that, they're providing Bahamians with necessary fruit trees and other items. And I am certain that the Ministry of Agriculture would be more than happy as part of their food program to provide trees within such areas so individuals would have access to fruits and fresh fruits and vegetables. The government, Mr. Speaker, will put in place the necessary infrastructure so that the lots would be worth in the vicinity of $150,000. Thus, individuals starting with an equity of $100,000 or more. I should note, Mr. Speaker, that lots in the vicinity are well in excess of $150,000 today. And therefore, I see no reason why, as we speak today, the lots may be at 150, but I see no reason why, once the infrastructure and other amenities are in place, the price of those lots will be well in excess of $200,000, of which our Bahamians, our citizens, would be able to purchase at $40,000 and $50,000 respectively. The committee has already spoken with a number of banks, Mr. Speaker, who are anxious to come on board, and provisionally they have stated that individuals would not have to come up with any down payment, which is one of the greatest obstacles for home construction. And that would be possible because the equity would be so large. And Mr. Speaker, banks that we had not spoken to, those individuals, other banks, have called and stated that they too would like to be a part of this program. But Mr. Speaker, I don't want to say much about the banking and financial sector at this point in time because we have members here on the government side who are well knowledgeable in both real estate and banking, and I'm certain that they would make their contribution. Mr. Speaker, another savings to the Bahamian populace, in addition to this massive saving, another saving, Mr. Speaker, there will be at least 10 architectural design where individuals can select one of the 10 for their home. And thus they would not be subjected to the traditional architectural fees that we see today. Mr. Speaker, the average home in such area would be about $250,000 to $300,000, which means that the architectural fee for such facility to that individual would be about $30,000. But under this program, they would only have to purchase a plan for $1,000, thus an additional saving of $29,000. Mr. Speaker, the government will also grant certain exemptions to make the construction of the homes more affordable by waiver of customs duties on all building materials and appliances. In order to ensure the development is completed in a timely manner, home construction will need to be completed within 2 years of purchase. There will be, Mr. Speaker, no stamp tax. There will be no real property tax for a minimum of 2 years. And as the committee continues and completes their job, there would be more concessions that would be offered. Mr. Speaker, we want to complete the second component of the Bahamian Plan. Mr. Speaker, small businesses are the heart and soul of our economy. My government is passionate about helping small business people. We want new businesses established. We want existing small businesses to grow. In this new community, opportunities will be provided for young entrepreneurs to provide residential and commercial services for lawn and garden care, planting and removal, irrigation and drainage, landscape design, and stone and hardscaping. In designing a residential subdivision, Mr. Speaker, it is important to take waste management into account. Opportunity will be provided for an entrepreneur to collect and dispose of domestic and commercial waste. Mr. Speaker, I want to point out that such development will offer great opportunities for new entrepreneurship. In terms of garbage collection, a new entrepreneur may enter such facility where the trucks are smaller, a condensed version, as opposed to the big trucks that we see moving through our streets. We have smaller, condensed trucks. Individuals would be able to enter contractual arrangement, 1 or 2 trucks, to perform the collection in such facility, and such trucks being brought in for such investment, again, will receive all the necessary duty concessions so that they can start up a business quite adequately. So that is one business. A second business, with so many homes and other facilities, landscaping is essential. And therefore, there's no reason why you cannot have 2 or 3 new landscapers engaged in such facility And Mr. Speaker, that is important because you would have better control of the number of individuals moving into such an area, and that is important in terms of security, as opposed to free for all. But also, in terms of garbage collection, the garbage bins would be somewhat standardized, where one can use the plastic bins with the necessary caps or tops. And individuals must keep their bins within the garage facility, knowing that their garbage collection may be 11 o'clock on a particular day. And if it's 11 o'clock, they must bring their bin to the outside of their home at 9 o'clock so that their bins can be emptied, and by 12 o'clock, the bins must be transported back into the garage in a safe environment so as to minimize the possibility of rodents and other infestations. Mr. Speaker, that again will offer some form of entrepreneurship. The entrepreneurs, Mr. Speaker, will be required to establish a waste management plan with a waste management system. The clubhouse will also be an organized commercial operation for an entrepreneur. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, we understand that the young people in this development will have families or be about to start families. As a result, the community will have provision for a preschool. And I've just shown that, Mr. Speaker, in the design plan, where preschool is provided within such area, and that is new investment for such individuals. This preschool will be built on the government's ongoing program to provide free preschool education. Mr. Speaker, the committee will make a determination as to the cost of such land for preschool. But the government has programs for such development, and I am certain that individuals would take advantage of such investment, as we hope that those in the Family Islands would likewise do the same. And this initiative will expand access to land for a broad cross-section of young Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, there was a what? I have 10 minutes, so I know better speed track. Mr. Speaker, there was a subdivision. My government, Mr. Speaker, is about people. It's about ensuring that people are given the greatest opportunity to expand their wealth, grow, and develop. There is a subdivision developed in the Port Charlotte area by the former government. Individuals were charged as high as $182,000 for such homes within that area. When we came in, Mr. Speaker, we felt that was too high, and we subsequently dropped the price to $140,000. It's unfortunate that those who went in under the PLP are paying up to $182,000, and those that went in under the F&M are paying $140,000. But so be it. You can't change that. Senator, I know you do something about that. But Mr. Speaker, and they say it's not the people's time. It is certainly the people's time. Do you not agree, pioneers? Then, Mr. Speaker, in addition to that $182,000, Centerville, who is an accountant, would tell us that at the end of the day, those individuals will pay over $400,000 That is not right. Mr. Speaker, then there was another development. $10 million was being invested in a house near Goodman's Bay called the Playa property. $10 million. And why? The purchase of a house so as to provide entertainment for the Prime Minister and whomever he wants there, other ministers. Mr. Speaker, already the government has spent $7 million on such facility. I do not need such facility. And Mr. Speaker, I think it's essential that individuals see what the $10 million was being invested on. This is the structure today. $4 million was spent for the purchase, and up to $3 million for $4 million. I think leader opposition say who we bought it, who they bought it from. When he speaks. Yeah. But $3 million renovation, but on NIB's book at this point in time for an excess of $7 million. But Mr. Speaker, rather than trying to spend $10 million to entertain the Prime Minister and whomever else, we prefer to invest in the people. This is another picture of the $10 million structure. But that is sitting on the books. I need no such entertainment, and we will sell it. Right.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador on a point of order.
Point of order, Speaker.
Point of order.
What's it? Huh? I don't know. Speaker. Speaker. My recollection of that project, was that I don't know about the $10 million investment. It was never $10 million. And I would ask the Prime Minister to establish that $10 million was to be spent, and under what conditions they were going to be spent. It was never designed for any, it was not designed for any personal and or special entertainment center for the Prime Minister. It was in keeping, as is what occurring in most Caribbean countries, a center for entertainment of dignitaries from around the world. And so, Mr. Speaker, there's no to attribute it to have some special interest personal to the former Prime Minister is a mischaracterization of the investment. And I asked him to demonstrate to me of the $10 million that was earmarked for it. It was never that amount. That's my recollection. And I invite him to justify that the expenditure was to be $10 million, or withdraw that amount, or withdraw it.
Speaker, already they've spent $7 million. You see where we are. You would need. I would have. Allow me to complete. Allow me to complete. You ask a question, I would respond to your question.
I think I'll rightly find out more often than not. If it is asserting that $7 million was spent, I'm asking him to either establish that was spent and or withdraw that. I also ask
that he established that $10 million was what was to be spent. I always thought that as well.
I love the leader of opposition. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I made a mistake. I accept. I made a mistake. It was not $7 million, to be exact. It was $6,981,946. I repeat, the leader of opposition is correct. It's not $7 million. I withdraw. The exact amount is $6,981,946.
And not even a paint job. Not even a paint job.
But Mr. Speaker, another $10 million was to be earmarked for renovation of judges' facility just opposite this development that I speak about. And if the leader of opposition thinks I am fabricating, I would make such statement public, and you can sue me. Give me that opportunity to sit on the bench and spill my guts and subpoena all those who has the information. Sue me.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rum Kingston, Salvador. On a point of order.
What campaign minister wish to do outside in the outside of this outside of these precincts? It's his choice.
Honorable members.
It's his choice, and those who may be offended by it will do what they have to do. But what I'm saying, in Parliament, if he's making assertions, all we're asking, as you often require, is for him to establish it. That's all. That's what we ask him to do.
In the interest of time is running out, and I am certain that my colleague, Minister of Agriculture, who will wrap up this debate, I'm certain that he will elaborate on many things.
Honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Pine Ridge on a point of order.
Didn't want to interrupt you, Kalani. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
Yes, point order for clarification for my people and myself, because I want to just listen. The picture you just showed, was that supposed to be a house by the previous government for the house of the Prime Minister, or just a place for entertainment for the Prime Minister? Okay, and in addition to that, we are now also getting a piece of property for the future house building of the Prime Minister in this set of properties. Okay, that's why I'm asking.
The property for the official residence of the Prime Minister had been purchased a long time ago, and it still sits waiting for whichever Prime Minister will embark on such development. That was purchased for entertainment of Prime Minister, ministers, etc., right? But not for I don't want to impugn the Prime Minister. No.
Chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rum Kingston, Salvador. On a point of order.
That property was purchased during the 2002-2007 administration of the Progressive Party. No, they sent me no check. I remember that. Right, and it was purchased to preserve it for proper access and to be a part of the Goodman's Bay amenity for Bahamians. No, I can tell you, man. I can tell you. The member from Freetown can tell you that. Because they were trying to buy it for the Bahamas project. It's going to be by the Bahamas.
Honorable members.
And the then administration refused to
honorable members.
allow them to buy the property and kept and bought it for the Bahamian people. And that's what it was fought for, to preserve it for the Bahamian people to have proper access to the beach, and also the purpose then was to convert it to a proper entertainment center for the government.
$180 piece of land.
They
For access.
thought he didn't know anything with it.
And $10 million. I should recognize John Kalani.
The Speaker, the Speaker, you know, I wish I was wrapping up so I could have all day, but I'm sure my colleague minister would do a very good job. But Speaker, in the interest of time, I think the press, for those who don't know where this building is, Goodman's Bay, and it's about the second or third building moving first, moving on eastern boundary.
That's what the beach for. That's why we want the beach.
Yes, right.
The man come up and take back there.
Anyhow, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we're talking about $20 million. 20 million. Mr. Speaker, we are providing young Bahamian professionals with access to land at lower rates than are available on the open market. We consider a professional as someone who is accomplished. Who they're talking about drug dealer?
No, that's it.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes we can be placed in an embarrassing situation. Kindly ask individuals to turn off all fell. I don't want to hear about no drug dealer no more. Anyhow, Mr. Speaker, we consider a professional as someone who is accomplished in his or her field, sufficient independently to sustain a mortgage or the financial responsibility for a residential dwelling in the community. And this community, Mr. Speaker, is not restricted to a particular type of academic or professional training. You don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a doctor or an engineer to qualify. Mr. Speaker, a barber properly qualified is a professional. A plumber properly qualified is a professional. A beautician with proper qualification is a professional. A police, defense force, they are professionals. A teacher is a professional, Mr. Speaker, and that's just to give a few examples. And so is a farmer. He is a professional. So I don't want people to misconstrue that a professional is only a doctor, lawyer, or accountant. No. A professional has great definitions. And to be eligible, Mr. Speaker, you must be a Bahamian 45 years or younger who is resident in the Bahamas. You're not going to be overseas and try to build here. You must be here. Even though the subdivision is in New Providence, Family Island residents are eligible to apply. Applications are to be made by individuals or married couples. 2 or more people may also apply. However, financial institutions will assess the risk determination of such applications, and only first-time homeowners are eligible. The first-time homeowner status will be confirmed by the Registrar General's Department and the Department of Inland Revenue. An applicant may only be eligible once and may only acquire one property in any such government home owning initiative. The application and application process are being finalized, as are other details. The Speaker, Committee of Professionals are putting the entire plan and program together, and an excellent recommendation have been emailed to us by a young lawyer, and their recommendations were very valid and excellent, And Mr. Speaker, I therefore invite the public, especially the young professionals, young individuals, to send forth their suggestions and their comments as to the direction of such development. And they may send such suggestion to opmcommunications@bahamasgov.bs, or they can click on the suggestion link at opm.gov.bs. Mr. Speaker, it is anticipated the application process will open to the public this summer. In the interim, at the conclusion of this resolution, we will work toward the finalization of the transparent application and selection process, the execution of architectural drawings that can be purchased off the shelf, and commencement of the infrastructure installation. No applications have been accepted to date for this community. I repeat, no applications have been accepted thus far. No list of persons has been established for this community. And guiding principles for the application process have been established. It will, Pine Rich, be transparent. It will be digital. The Department of Transformation and Digitization has confirmed that it will prioritize making the application and submission of supporting documents possible online. There will be strict adherence to eligibility criteria. There will be no favoritism, no speculation and flipping of property. Government has the right of first refusal, but we'll expand on that as we progress. No special group or special people will be prioritized. Unlike what was done in Dignity, where individuals were selected. Mr. Speaker, we are not like them. Dignity is in my subdivision, my constituency. And when I campaigned in Dignity, the residents, you went there afterward. The residents would have informed me of how they got there. You had to be loyal to the PLP. And Mr. Speaker, as I moved through, there was a cousin of mine who occupied a home in Dignity. My uncle's child, brothers and sisters. And I asked him, how in the world you got here? How you got here in Dignity? He said, man, whatever they wanted me to say, I said. But you know, and I know, I'm an F&M. So he had to pledge allegiance to the PLP to get there. But that's not about us. We won't do that. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, the Bahamians will never return to that grouping. Mr. Speaker, my government recognizes that the path to upward mobility and building up the middle class is through access to affordable land. I just want to say another little thing about Dignity. Mr. Speaker, Dignity, the residents, some were given grass and fence. Fence. After they discovered that he was a F&M and related to me, he was denied grass and fence. Mr. Speaker, my government recognizes that the path to upward mobility and building up the middle class is through access to affordable land. 50 minutes. This is especially important for young people who have seen the cost of land move beyond their reach. If we want our young people to continually improve their status in life, they must have access to land as a foundation of their personal wealth. My government has a policy of empowerment through affordable land ownership. The announcement of the community for young professionals is not the first land development of my government. For example, we are in the process of another type of development in Carmichael, where the lot prices start at $15,000 for lots valued at over $70,000. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, in the Carmichael constituency, the commercial lots are sold for $20,000. Commercial lots are $20,000 and the residential are $15,000. This is the development of the Carmichael subdivision. And this shows the progress being made, the infrastructural development in the Carmichael constituency. So these lots, Mr. Speaker, you purchase at $15,000 that are valued at $70,000, and therefore and Mr. Speaker, there will be further offerings at various different price levels. All will be in well-designed subdivisions with world-class infrastructure and suitable amenities. Our land empowerment initiatives are not one-off endeavors. They will go on for years and years, building on what the previous F&M governments have done in previous terms in office. We have already identified a number of tracts of crown land in New Providence, an additional 2 we've identified, and in the Family Islands, where we will provide affordable land to Bahamians at various levels. In Grand Bahama, Mr. Speaker, a subdivision was developed, and in spite of the challenges and problems Grand Bahama faced, the prices varied in this subdivision just 1 mile before McLeanstown. The prices varied from $16,000, some $22,000, $26,000, both residential, both multi family as well as single family. We recognize the challenges that Grand Bahama face with Dorian and with pandemic. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, my government is proposing to decrease the price value for all these properties to be purchased in Grand Bahama by 50%. And as these are outside of the free-forward zone, they will be entitled to all of the goodies that are being offered here in New Providence. After all, Pine Ridge, you are still our brother. And I know when I'm finishing and start to talk about CARICOM Nation, Gonzales, and St. Vincent that's being affected, I am certain you will support us assisting this time. Mr. Speaker, our intention is for thousands of Bahamian first-time homeowners to benefit from our vision for wealth creation, ownership, and empowerment. This is how we expand the middle class. This is how we empower our people. And therefore, as we continue our development in the Family Islands along the same direction, 10 minutes, they're running. I was surprised to read online from Eyewitness News on March 29, 2021, various criticisms of our land initiative from the member from the Exumas and Ragged Island. The one thing I thought we all could agree on is providing access to land to young Bahamians. Yet, as has been their practice for our entire term, if we propose it, the opposition will find some way to criticize it. As a demonstration of how reckless and irresponsible their criticism have been, the opposition went as far as opposing a number of life-saving emergency public health measures during the worst global pandemic in 100 years. Their opposition to the emergency health measures that are saving Bahamian lives will go down as one of the most disgraceful decisions of any elected party in Bahamian history. Countries around the world are using versions of these measures. But because we propose them here to save Bahamian lives, the opposition is against them. In the FNM, Mr. Speaker, we put Bahamian lives before partisanship. The FNM.
Chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rum Kingston, Salvador, on a point of order.
Member for Kaladi is truly crossing the line. Right? For him to suggest that we on this side have less care or concern about the lives of the Bahamian people is despicable and ought not to be coming from the mouth of a prime minister. Speaker, when was it that we ever not support the measures he put in? Our position has always been is the manner in which he implemented the measures, because on each occasion it seemed to have produced chaos and confusion. One, we made recommendations to this government as to how we see things ought to. Our concerns have always been that we are performing worse than most countries in our region. I got you. And I don't say that. That is what is said, and what is said by just look at the numbers. Just look at the numbers, Mr. Speaker. We are worse, and we don't have to be this bad. That has always been our position.
Okay, can I finish? Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time, we've had this debate before, the opposition leader and myself and us. I would proceed. The opposition leader has a time to speak, and when he speaks, I will use his time by jumping up and interjecting. Mr. Speaker, in the FNM, we believe giving land to young Bahamians is the right thing to do. Those of us in public life should be able to agree on good policy initiatives, such as this subdivision. And a similar subdivision is to be done in Exuma. It is fine for legislators to make suggestions as to how to improve ideas. However, just criticizing for political reasons is disgraceful. We will continue to move aggressively to give land to Bahamians. We will continue to move aggressively to empower our next generation. And I say to all those young people who are watching me as I speak, it is all about your future. We make no apologies for supporting Bahamians, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of good government is to give a chance to those who have been historically denied opportunity. Good government is about making sure young people in our next generation can meet their full potential. And that is why we are here, Pine Ridge. That is why we are here. This is the work we intend to keep doing. We intend to make the Bahamian dream a reality. Education, home, jobs, and healthcare. Mr. Speaker, before I end, it is necessary that I make a few comments on the pandemic. It has been a difficult year. We are all tired of restrictions and being distant. We'd all like to live the lives we were accustomed to before this deadly virus spread around the world. But while we are frustrated, we must remain disciplined and abide by the public health measures for a while longer. The pandemic is raging around the world. There is particular difficulty in various parts of our region of the Americas. South America is experiencing a significant surge, while parts of the Caribbean and North America are having challenges also. Europe is dealing with its own upswing of cases, which has led to a wave of restrictions and lockdowns. on the continent. The pandemic, Mr. Speaker, is not over, and I ask Bahamians to continue to follow the mitigation protocols. If we are slack and stop practicing the public health measures, we too could have significant problems. In the past few weeks, cases have risen in the Bahamas, and this has led to increased hospitalizations. To help slow the spread, we must redouble our efforts. We must remember to avoid massive gatherings, be physically distant, when out, wear your mask properly over both your nose and mouth, wash or sanitize your hands regularly, and keep them away from your face. And when you are eligible, get vaccinated. Vaccinations are our way out of this pandemic. If anyone tells you otherwise, they're giving you bad information. The virus that causes COVID-19 is very, very infectious, and it spreads easily. New variants of concern have emerged, and they have been even easier to catch. Scientists think they are deadlier also. If you are eligible, waiting to take a vaccine could cost you your life. While you are waiting, you could catch this deadly virus. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, we have one of the worst health profiles in the world due to the high rates of obesity and chronic non-communicable diseases such as diabetes and hypertension. And COVID-19 is particularly dangerous to Bahamians. Many Bahamians have multiple comorbidities. And I say, do not just ignore the virus. Do not think it won't affect you. This pandemic will only end when a significant majority of Bahamians are vaccinated. And my government has secured doses, and we are working day and night to secure more, so that every adult Bahamian who wants to be vaccinated can be vaccinated. But for the vaccine to work, you must come forward and take it. The more we get vaccinated, the more we can open up the economy. This means more jobs, increased working hours, and more wealth for Bahamians. In these difficult times, let's stay focused on what is important to get us through this crisis and back to normal. Abide by the public health measures. Get vaccinated when it is your time. Mr. Speaker, the resolution we debate today will help to secure homes and a better future for more young Bahamians. We are securing dreams and opportunities. We are making the Bahamian dream a reality. We will ensure that it is not just a dream. It is and will become a reality. You agree, Heinrich? It is with this great hope that I support this resolution. Mr. Speaker, I so move. But, Mr. Speaker, before I read the resolution, I only want to say that St. Vincent is experiencing volcanic eruption. And even during the day, complete darkness. Because of the ash, the sun is occluded, and they are in continuous darkness, especially the areas that are affected. Ashes are throughout the island, and because of the direction of the wind, Barbados likewise affected. As a speaker, I can tell you from experience, having lived in Barbados and being there in 1980, having experienced a similar explosion in one of the islands, went to bed, waking up that morning, finding the entire island covered in ash. It is a massive cleanup post. The volcano to clean up this massive amount of ash. I've spoken to Mayor Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados. He told me of their challenge for cleaning up. They've embarked on that. And even Barbados, though daylight, is experiencing darkness. I've spoken to Prime Minister Gonzalez in St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and I've reassured him that I would take the matter to cabinet and we would offer whatever assistance we can. I want all Bahamians to remember that when we were affected by Dorian, Jamaica sent, this is off now, Jamaica sent its defense force here to assist us. Now, I got to read it. I have to read this. Jamaica sent its defense force to assist us in and assist the security. Trinidad and Barbados likewise sent their defense force here to assist us with security. Had it not been for their assistance, we could have experienced severe problems within the Abaco and the Abaco Creeks. And Mr. Speaker, Cabinet had met and were proposing to send monetary. Though times are hard with us, I am certain that all responsible and loving Bahamians would agree that under these circumstances, things are even worse for them, because their whole agricultural products would be covered in ash, their water lines would be affected. Barbados has already offered to accept many of individuals from St. Vincent who has relatives or relationships there. And I think it's essential that we do our part. And I'm happy to see that you agree with me today, Prime Rich. And Mr. Speaker, it's true. Mr. Speaker, I've also spoken with the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Alan, and he has informed me that St. Lucia at this point in time has not been affected because the wind is blowing towards Barbados as opposed to St. Lucia. So I want all Bahamians to support us in assisting our CARICOM brothers and sisters who are presently experiencing complete darkness, no daylight, and whose farmlands, homes, and other entities are completely covered in ash. And I won't be surprised, Mr. Speaker, depending on the weight of the ash, that can pose challenges to the roofing of some homes. As you know, it can subsequently collapse. So, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I'd like to read the first and the last paragraph of the resolution. Whereas the government of the Bahamas, the government, recognizes that the cost of land in the Bahamas, and especially in New Providence, has made it prohibitive for many young Bahamians to achieve their dreams of owning their own homes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this House supports the development of the said Hereditament as an upscale community for young Bahamian professionals and the granting of concessions which would allow them the opportunity to access affordable land for the building of their homes within the western area of New Providence. And pursuant to Section 5.3a of the said Act, this House approves the conveyance of the said Hereditament by the Treasurer to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in the right of our government of the Commonwealth of Bahamas for the sum of $10 in the said currency. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there a seconder? Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Garden Hills.
Mr. Speaker. Right? Oh. Mr. Speaker, I stand here today on behalf of the wonderful people of the Garden Hills constituency and to say to them thanks for their unflinching support and for holding me up during these tough times, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a wonderful day for Bahamians everywhere. It's a day when both young Bahamians, young professional Bahamians, and parents can rejoice. Can rejoice because this government has taken yet another step in improving the quality of life of ordinary Bahamians. Speaker, I listened with interest to the Honorable Prime Minister in his presentation, and he hinted at what was taking place in Dignity Gardens with regards to fence and grass. And Mr. Speaker, I remember that very, very clearly, because in 2007, I was in the Ministry of Housing, and I had scores of individuals in Pride Estates and in Dignity Gardens, Mr. Speaker, say to me that they could not understand why the minister with responsibility for housing offered grass and fence to some individuals and not others. Mr. Speaker, they went even further. They suggested, Mr. Speaker, that the Minister of Housing was selective in his approach and gave grass and fence to PLPs. Mr. Speaker, this was unbearable to the Free National Movement. And so one of the first tasks I had to do, Mr. Speaker, was to provide grass and fence, lawn to scores of individuals who, quote unquote, the PLP believe to be FNL. So, Mr. Speaker, that was only one of the many things that the person's officer did to undercut the Bahamian public. What the Prime Minister did not say to you, Mr. Speaker, was this. Also in Dignity Gardens, Dignity Gardens 3. Dignity Gardens 3 was created because when the then Minister of Housing, Mr. Gibson, retired, and Mr. Wisdom became the Minister with responsibility for housing, notwithstanding the fact that his colleague had given hundreds of letters to constituents, persons in Pride Estates, and Dignity Gardens and elsewhere, Mr. Wisdom took the approach, Mr. Speaker, that he was the Minister of Housing and not Mr. Gibson. And as a consequence, when we came to office, Mr. Speaker, scores of individuals had letters of commitment to the same house. Same house, Mr. Speaker. 2 individuals, one letter issued by Minister Gibson, another letter issued by the next Minister of Housing. And as a consequence, Mr. Speaker, the government's response was very quick. We took the decision right away, Mr. Speaker, to create a subdivision called Dignity Gardens 3, where all those persons who were given letters by the 2 ministers under the PLP for the same house had to be replaced and sent in a different area. And so, Mr. Speaker, what I will speak to today, Mr. Speaker, is about the philosophy of the Free National Movement as opposed to the actions of the PLP. Mr. Speaker, I often say in this place that we are different, sometimes distinctively different in our approach to governance.
in our approach to the Bahamian people and our approach to the next generation of leaders in this country. You are aware, Mr. Speaker, of the initiatives taken by this government. And the Prime Minister hinted at a few of them. And if I was a football player, I'd say in every case, the Prime Minister threw a touchdown. First on his agenda, Mr. Speaker, was free education for Bahamians at UB. Yes. You get around the buoy dead quick on that one, Mr. Speaker. Dead quick. I'm sure the Minister of Education is going to talk about how that process is working. Then, Mr. Speaker, knowing about his investment and his interest in young Bahamians, he spoke about and delivered on advances to small business development, where scores of individuals were receiving grants and loans, Mr. Speaker, to establish their small business as a part of this F&M government's proactive view to make the country better, especially for young people who had an interest in development and interest in developing this country. Mr. Speaker, you are also aware that Prime Minister started what I call, he just had a first down on this move. He decided to reduce the cost of service lots. Reduce the cost of service lots to ordinary Bahamians. So that a service lot that was costing approximately $30,000, he immediately reduced it to $15,000, Mr. Speaker. And that has been evident throughout this term of his governance. He went as far, Mr. Speaker, as to go to a settlement in Abaco called Crossing Rocks. And you will recall that the Prime Minister went to Abaco, where individuals at Crossing Rock, because of a hurricane, had to relocate their community. And he determined, Mr. Speaker, that he would give the individuals the land in Crossing Rock for $400 to $600. The Speaker, that couldn't even cover legal fees if you look on the market. This, Mr. Speaker, just represents some of the advances of this free national movement government during these times. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas spoke about advances in housing and advances to the development of the Bahamian people. I just want to remind individuals about his heart and the advances that he made to the Bahamian public generally during these COVID times. And during these times, Mr. Speaker, his actions and the actions of this government, he's gone on board, Mr. Speaker, at spending over $260 million in unemployment assistance to the Bahamian people. I hear a lot of people say, oh, that's the government money. Yes, it is. But it takes a man with courage and determination to make the decision, Mr. Speaker, that I'm going to assist the Bahamian people, Bahamians who are impacted by COVID, Bahamians who can no longer go to work. I'm going to make sure, Mr. Speaker, that 22,000 Bahamians who are public officers will not lose one day's pay, because he believed, Mr. Speaker, that in many cases, they were the single working persons in the household. His interest in Bahamians and Bahamian development is unmatched, Mr. Speaker. Unmatched. And so today, Mr. Speaker, I come to speak to you and to speak to the Bahamian public about this wonderful initiative to provide home ownership to young professional Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, I come from a family island, in fact, a small key in the exomas. But one of the sounding boards and one of the absolute strong footing of persons from that community and persons in Exoma, and certainly persons everywhere in the Bahamas is, from their parents, they believe that you should own a piece of the rock. And so, Mr. Speaker, 16, when you started work, one of the first things your parents would do in my community was to ask you to invest in some form of land ownership. And so, Mr. Speaker, if those parents in Exuma move to Nassau, and even if they remain in Exuma today, this initiative by the Prime Minister to provide land for ordinary Bahamians along Skyline Drive for $40,000 is surely a remarkable step. Could you imagine, Mr. Speaker, the number of Bahamians who could not today qualify to purchase land along Skyline Drive? Certainly is out of reach for me, Mr. Speaker. Because land along Skyline Drive, if I want to buy land along Skyline Drive today, you're looking at $150,000 if you're lucky. And today, Mr. Speaker, this Free National Movement government has taken the step to provide the same land along Skyline Drive for ordinary Bahamians for $40,000. So parents throughout the Bahamas are proud. They're proud because their child can now qualify for a piece of land in a high-end, upscale area. Mr. Speaker, I said initially that we are carrying on this legacy that was established by the FNM. And I said that the philosophies are different. Certainly the philosophies on land and land matters are totally different, Mr. Speaker. We have done this, Mr. Speaker. We've taken these steps, Mr. Speaker, by making land available to Bahamians and, Mr. Speaker, by doing some other things to assist the Bahamian population. We are consistent, Mr. Speaker, and we're carrying on steps and procedures and protocols established by the Free National Movement, as far as I know, in 2009. When the FNM amended the Housing Act, and during this amendment in 2009, in fact, May 2009, 3 significant positive steps took place, Mr. Speaker. 1, Free National Movement reduced the down payment to persons interested in purchasing a home from the government from 10% to 5%. At that time, Mr. Speaker, in 2009, the average cost of a house was $100,000. Could you imagine the joy of ordinary Bahamians who could now qualify for a house at $5,000? That's all they needed. $5,000 by an initiative introduced by the Free National Movement in 2009. Second fact of this amendment, Mr. Speaker, the government knew what was taking place in its utility corporations. And it caused a reduction in the cost of utility connection to government-owned homes. 3, Before 2009, Mr. Speaker, if you got a government loan for housing, the loan was only insured up to $100,000. Government realized that Bahamians were being active and Bahamians were getting involved in this process. So they increased the government guarantee on insurable housing from $100,000 to $250,000 in 2009. Mr. Speaker, I thought that was a great, great improvement over what was taking place in housing. But what I'm hearing today, Mr. Speaker, is even more remarkable. What I'm hearing today is this, Mr. Speaker, that if I qualify for a house in Skyline Drive, I could be in a position, Mr. Speaker, to own that house without making the 5% down payment, because I would have built in the purchase of this lot equity sufficient enough to cause me to build a house. Mr. Speaker, we have yet again moved the ball further for the development of the Bahamian people. And as a result, Mr. Speaker, Prime Minister only talk about those service lots that he has shown today. There are 2 or 3 other parcels that he will make available to other Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, compare and contrast what we've done in the Free National Movement to what they have done. And I begin by looking at what they have done, Mr. Speaker. And I started this process a few weeks ago when I spoke about an audit that was laid in the Parliament about proceeds from NIB. $10 million that NIB gave to the Ministry of Housing to purchase and to build homes for ordinary Bahamians. So, Mr. Speaker, what I said then and what I will say today, Mr. Speaker, that this was an unprecedented step. This was surely a new and different direction on how we should survive or how we should build housing. Before the PLP took this step, Mr. Speaker, in 2016, everyone knew that the Ministry of Housing and the professionals in the Ministry of Housing would prepare a subdivision. They would hire contractors to build a house. And either the ministry itself, or if individuals got monies from the banks, or the banks, private banks, these groups and the ministry had at the time, and still have, a group of professionals who were to oversee the building and the construction of homes. But consistent with the philosophy of the PLP, they thought of something that was totally different. And what they did was, Mr. Speaker, was instead of allowing the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation that has had the capacity, the will, and the ability to do its work, or the Ministry of Housing to do the work, they thought it was prudent, Mr. Speaker, to shift that responsibility to one of their former candidates and one of their operatives, I'd call it. And so, Mr. Speaker, it's very interesting, you know. Very interesting. And I think if the FNM even attempted to do such a thing today, I think the PLP would be all over this place, crying and screaming about what the FNM is doing. But imagine this, Mr. Speaker. The National Insurance Board traditionally assisted in house building. And the normal process would be the National Insurance Board would give to the Ministry of Housing funds to build a house. The Ministry of Housing would use all of its resources to make sure that's done. But the creative genius of the PLP said we don't have to go in that direction, Mr. Speaker. We could give it to one of our operatives, and eventually we'd ensure that the monies would go directly from NIB to this operative, to his personal account, and he would take the responsibility of building houses for the government. I'm talking about the $10 million. Well, yes, I know what I'm saying. Well, his company is the company. Well, his company, I'm thinking my company is me. Well, I'm not a lawyer, so thanks for your correction. I'll listen. Oh, you don't have anything to say? I understand why Cat Island is frustrated by this, you know. I fully understand that. Because I don't think he would have done it. I don't believe that he would allow the National Insurance Company, the National Insurance, to give money to somebody like me and say, here's $10 million. Go out there and build some house for these Bahamian people. Cat Island is different from that. Cat Island would collect a couple of contractors and get them together and tell them build. He'd make sure a mortgage corporation is the key entity that makes the payment.
You ain't gonna find the house sometimes.
Yeah, you may miss one or two. You may miss one or two. But I know Cat Island, he ain't gonna do that.
What?
He will not support that. He does not support it now, and that's why he did not stand, because he know that it was wrong. He knows that that was wrong. It's more than wrong, Mr. Speaker, because the result of that is nearly $1 million have been lost from this exercise. Could you imagine, Mr. Speaker? Could not be accounted for. Nearly $1 million have not yet been accounted for during these transactions. I'm talking, Mr. Speaker, about the process of how the government sought to assist its citizens. And it seems to me that a mainstay of how the PLP does that sometimes is to go to their mind. Go to their mind instead of doing it directly, instead of using the professional organizations, instead of going to the Ministry of Housing or going to the mortgage corporation that are set up to do this work. They got to hire a fella in between to get it done. That is why, Mr. Speaker, the subdivision next to Dignity Gardens, that when we came to office, a contractor was hired to do some work. A contractor was hired to build a subdivision. And if you drive in that area, you will see what the contractor did. Thousands of dollars were spent. What you can see today, Mr. Speaker, is 3 houses that are at least 6 feet below the road level. 3 houses for over $1 million, built at least 6 feet below the road level. At least 6 feet, at least. The rooftop would be the foundation, where the foundation should be. Mr. Speaker, The rooftop is where the foundation should be. That's how low the house is. And so if it rains, you don't have to worry about that one. That is the result of the PLP's initiative in the extension to Dignity Gardens, Mr. Speaker. And that is why I say, Mr. Speaker, they have not done a good job. They don't have a good reputation about building houses. Mr. Speaker, what was interesting, was when I spoke about the position of the PLP and their housing project, and how I thought it was inappropriate for them to even consider talking about housing. The chairman of the PLP immediately issued a vicious attack of me, Mr. Speaker, and I just can speak about what he said in part. He said the public service minister, Mr. Brensel Roll, has some nerve. He is a public figure whose political legacy is so uninspiring and his performance as minister so lackluster that the prime minister has dropped him from his ticket. That was the first response by the chairman of the PLP. And Mr. Speaker, one of the things I always do, and I've done all my life, is I was a teacher of history, so when people say things, I like check the records very quickly to see what is the facts. And so I looked up the Minister of Foreign Affairs and I looked about his record. First of all, I was never dropped from the FNL. I never determined that I wanted to make politics my career. I had a wonderful career as a public officer, worked there for 30 years. So I came to politics to contribute and then to move on. And I told my party this a long time ago, I had no interest in going forward. I'd done my work. But I looked at the Minister of Foreign Affairs and I know politics has been his life. No, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, the chairman of the PLP, let me get it right. The chairman of the PLP, who has made politics his career. Made politics his career, Mr. Speaker. And then I looked at his accomplishment. And I only see a couple of things. Let me tell you what I see, Mr. Speaker. I see a man who's made politics his career. I see a man whose legacy, I believe, will be that he has traveled to and fro all through the world at the expense of the Bahamas government. I see expense of the Bahamian people. I see a man who, as far as I know, was so entrenched and wanted to get in politics so bad that he begged the former prime minister to please make me an independent senator. Please. Prime Minister Ingram. That's what he did. And I know. I know. And that's the legacy that he wants me to follow. I have no interest, none whatsoever, in following that kind of legacy. Only one thing I hope, Mr. Speaker, I hope that the chairman of the PLP, who my homeboy and him had an exchange in the Senate the other day over his years, and he was perhaps concerned that he was almost 70 and still interested in getting in politics, and I see nothing wrong with a 70-year-old being in politics, nothing whatsoever. But I hope one thing for the chairman. I hope that he's turned over to the government all of those frequent flyer miles that he has attained as a result of the tickets bought by the Bahamas government. And since he wants to talk about things, I hope the media would ask him about that. I hope they would confirm, and he could confirm, that he did not steal these things from the government. Because that will be bad on his legacy, Mr. Speaker. That'll be a bad thing on his legacy. And he don't have to worry about my legacy.
Honorable member, you recognize the honorable member for Cat Island, Rum Key in San Salvador on a point of order.
You know, the level that the side opposite, I understand that they're now in their campaign mode. I understand they're now campaigning. But we are in the House of Assembly. I expect attack where? Attack where? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable members.
Mr. Speaker, he is suggesting that that an honorable member of the Senate who is not here to defend himself. But I can assure you, the person I know will not let what he said rest. I just hope he's ready for what may come from him. But I would ask him, in the absence of the member from the upper chamber, he ought not to be engaged in such broadside to the point where he's suggesting that he is or about to commit a criminal act. Right? He should withdraw that in these chambers at this time, Mr. Speaker, because he's accusing and making an allegation of someone in another chamber.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not accusing.
Honorable member.
Yes, sir.
Member for Cat Island. Specifically, you're speaking about the comment with respect to
He was talking.
the mile?
Yeah, the mile. And he can steal. He used the word steal. He used the word steal.
Honorable member for Garden Hills, can you clarify?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. My concern, Mr. Speaker, I was speaking about the legacy of the member of parliament who is the chairman of the PLP. His question to me was, he was questioning my legacy and what I was doing as the minister with responsibility for the public service and national insurance. And as a senator, Mr. Speaker, as a senator and a member of the government of the Bahamas, I was concerned that perhaps one of the things that we could question with regards to anyone's legacy is the extent to which someone has used a frequent flyer mileage from a ticket that was purchased by the government of the Bahamas. And I am only questioning whether or not the senator and chairman of the PLP has done just that. Now, if he did not do that, Mr. Speaker, then it's okay. Just like he said.
Honorable member. Honorable member.
Yeah, but let me explain. He don't have to be. Mr. Speaker, before I sat down in this place the last time.
Honorable members.
Yes, but
honorable members. The member for Garden Hills. You use the word initially. You're raising a question as to whether or not the former member and senator may have, in fact, stolen by reason of his travel. And so I would expunge from the record the word steal.
Okay.
I think that's
I take your advice.
I think that's an improper word to use
I
with
withdraw
respect
that.
to any senator or member.
I withdraw that, Mr. Speaker. I was only concerned, Mr. Speaker, that when we talk about the character in this place, when we talk about the legacy of individuals, Mr. Speaker, in my opinion, Mr. Speaker, if I travel at the expense of the government of the Bahamas and I get frequent flyer miles, those miles don't belong to me. They belong to the government of the Bahamas. And I was only contending that since those miles may belong to the government of the Bahamas, if such a thing occurred, then the government should get the proceeds. But I'm not suggesting that the senator and chairman of the PLP is stealing anything, Mr. Speaker. That is a determination that he must make.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island from Kingston, Salvador.
The challenge is that the member is speaking about another member, a senator, who is not present. And he's still going over the same old story. It is my view, Mr. Speaker, that it is wholly inappropriate for him to impute a proper motive to a sitting member in the other chamber. And that was he's suggesting by raising these questions. However he couches it, out in the public domain, people will hear what he has to say, and they will make of what he said that which they make. And that is where the danger lies. And he ought not to be. He ought not to be, in the absence of the member being here present to respond directly at this time, engaging in such broadside. And I'll invite you, Mr. Speaker, to have him withdraw those comments or have them stricken from the record.
When the senator raised those matters, I was not in that space to defend either. When he raised that and put that in the public domain, Mr. Speaker, I wasn't there. Wasn't there at all. So I don't know where the difficulty is. If he has the capacity, Mr. Speaker, to speak from the Senate and accuse me of something, well, wherever he said it, I was never present.
Raise another question. The member read from a document or from his phone. What is the source then of the information which he relies? Because he's now saying that the member spoke to that in the Senate, right? My recollection, I was not the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I invite you to ask the member whether or not the source of the information which he read, and if it is from a newspaper or whatever, whether he's adopting that, right, so as to ensure the efficacy of the venue from which it was said, so we could clear this issue up. Because he's now saying that the member was wrong to talk to me about it in the Senate, and I'm right to talk about the same thing here in the House, which is in itself inherently inconsistent.
And I also said,
Honorable member,
yes, sir.
What we need so we can move on from this point is clarification on whether or not the communication by the chairman of the PLP was made in the Senate, or whether or not it was made in a press release.
I think it was a press release, Mr. Speaker. I think it was a press release.
Member, it is inappropriate and improper to impute.
And I accept that, Mr. Speaker. I'm not here to wrangle over this. The basis of my concern, Mr. Speaker, is that a member of Parliament who sits in the Senate took a position and challenged and said what I should have done or could do based on a statement I made, and I'm just responding to that statement in kind because he talked about my political career and my legacy. And like I said, well, you know, we're not in a court of law and I ain't no lawyer, so I'm not gonna be tied up in that discussion. All I say is very simple. All I say is very simple. I don't mind getting a challenge from any member of parliament about my work in the public service. But when you challenge my work in the public service, you must also have, since you work in the public service like me or for the government, you must also have a record. And all I say is, I only know three things about the record of this man. One, he begged the former prime minister to appoint him in the Senate. Two, he traveled up and down the world at the expense of the Bahamas government. And three, he's the only Bahamian I know to burn the Constitution of and the Bahamian flag. Only one. I look around, I read all the books, try to find it anywhere of another Bahamian who determined that the Constitution that was set aside by my mentor, father of Angliston, and Mr. Pilner. I could not conceive in my own brain how a Bahamian would burn that up, Mr. Speaker. Burn it up and say he's a Bahamian. Speaker has the role. I'm from Exuma. I know I'm a Bahamian. I know no other Exumian would burn a flag like that. None. But this person who is the leader, one of the leaders in the PLP, the chairman of the PLP, to talk about and have the veracity to talk about the character and the work of an ordinary Bahamian. And so, Mr. Speaker, I understand, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I think it's that time.
Can I get 1 minute to close, Mr. Speaker? Because I want to commend the member of parliament, my MP for Exuma. I want to commend him, Mr. Speaker. I want to commend him because he represents the next generation of Exumians. Blood, thick, and water. Don't forget that. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the member of parliament for Exuma, who, when he spoke about land ownership and when he spoke about Bahamians owning land, you know what he said? He said, he raised this question, Mr. Speaker. He raised this question, Mr. Speaker. He said, why don't you all take land ownership or the distribution of land out of the hands of politicians and give it to a board or a committee? That was the genesis of his statement. He wanted to say, let's be more transparent, let's be clear, let's give this task to a committee or a board. Yes. I know that, Mr. Prime Minister. He's a good man. He's from Forbes Hill, Exuma. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm commending him because he's got to win there, you see. He's got to win because if you look at this new program, you see the Prime Minister is doing just that. The Prime Minister is doing just that, Exuma. He's taken that out of the hands of politicians. And I must tell you that, to be real with that Exuma, that's something I am pushing against. But I yield, Mr. Prime Minister. So when he said that this is the progress of the FNM, Mr. Speaker, it is my delight, Mr. Speaker, in seconding this resolution that will eventually wipe the tears from the eyes of every single young Bahamian as they move forward, upward, and onward together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Members, it has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas the government of the Bahamas, the government, recognizes that the cost of land in the Bahamas, and especially in New Providence, has made it prohibitive for many young Bahamians to achieve their dreams of owning their own homes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this House, one, supports the development of the said hereditaments as an upscale community for young Bahamian professionals and the granting of concessions which would allow them the opportunity to access affordable land for the building of their homes within the western area of New Providence, and two, pursuant to Section 5, subsection 3A of the said Act, this House approves the conveyance of the said hereditaments by the Treasurer to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in the right of her government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for the sum of $10,000 in the said currency. As many? Oh, correction. In the sum of $10 in the said currency. As many? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rum Cay, and San Salvador. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the business of this House suspends for the luncheon break and return at 3 p.m. today's date.
Is there a seconder? Honorable members, just before I put the motion, I remind you of the signing of the Book of Condolences at 1 Montague Place during this lunch time period, if you are able to do so. And then the time is extended until 5 p.m. this afternoon. I don't know if we'll be finished by that time. So
No, we won't. We won't be finished.
yes, we did make the request for the Book of Condolence to be brought to the Parliament. However, they have already scheduled a number of dignitaries and other persons we'll work on that. But those of you who are able to make it in the lunchtime period, we can do so at that time. Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House suspend for lunch until the 3 p.m. hour. As many members are in favor, will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.
All right.